Sean, when it comes to the roster construction, and Brandon talked a little bit about this yesterday, that for example, Jacob, was caught up not necessarily in a tight end thing, but you kept so many defensive linemen. How much of that, in general, not maybe specifically this season, happens organically, and how much of that is, looking at the draft and everything else? I mean, I guess the question I'm asking is this kind of a roster you arrived at more after looking at how everything fit together in training camp than anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always a large part of how you arrive where you're at the end of training camp, is just seeing how it fits together, and then philosophically, watching how we've evolved every year, where you're at offensively, defensively, special teams, and then obviously as an overall team. So, and trying to stay as balanced as we can. It's never exactly how you want it to be, but you try and stay as balanced as you can through all three phases as well.
Well, where do things stand at that cornerback competition between Levi and Dane?
Yeah, so they continue to battle, and that's true for all positions. The competition continues, and that's a good thing. We've got extremely competitive guys out here that want to compete. That's the environment we foster and facilitate every day out here, and yet it's putting the team first and taking care of one another. So, currently you'll see Levi out there. You'll also see Dane at times.
John, can you talk about the decision to keep or bring back both Davis Webb and Jake Fromm, and what was behind that?
Again, good additions for us. Always good to have as many guys as we were able to get back under our roof here, and those guys are going to continue to grow and develop, and in particular at that position, those are hard guys to find in this league. Good quarterbacks, and we think the world of those two, and thankful to have them back under our roof, like I said.
Partly because of the situation we're still in with this virus, having four to protect yourself too?
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. I can tell you that wasn't the driving force, but it doesn't hurt because of the environment we're in.
Sean, how much of the decision to release Jacob Hollister was your trust in what you've seen from Dawson Knox this year?
I think, at every position that goes into being able to release, although it's never easy, being able to release someone, it's because you have trust in the people that you keep. And in this case, in Dawson, we've seen improved play through really the spring and now on through training camp, and whether it be the run game or the pass game. And I think Josh would say the same. So you've seen an increased level of trust from Josh in the tight end passing game. So, I believe Dawson's best ball is ahead of him.
What does a guy like Taiwan Jones bring to your team? Fans don't see him carrying the ball or catching the ball because of his role. Why is he so important to you?
Yeah, well, he does something that not a lot of people do, and that's embrace the special teams role, and he takes a lot of pride in that. And there's another good guy that played with the Bills a couple years ago that did that also. Should be in the Hall of Fame. Just biased vote, but yeah, I mean, he takes a lot of pride in that role, and he's also a leader for our football team, and plays at a high level every week he's out there.
John, how are you treating this brand new week, this preseason bye week? Is this really just simply the same as a regular season bye week?
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll see if this is the case next year again, but I'm a routine guy, and you guys know that, so I'm trying to get kind of my handle on this week and making sure I'm in the right spot and what we're working on, I'm supposed to be working on, and serving our team the best way that I can. So I'm figuring it out just like everybody else here.
Sean, Brandon said 11 is probably the most he would keep at defensive line. He said he would have loved to keep 12 if Daryl Johnson was still a part of the roster, but coming from a defensive-minded approach, when you see 11 guys a part of that group, I mean, how does your brain start to churn with what you can do with that amount?
Yeah, it's great that we have those options, Maddie. Now they got to play, and it's time to buckle down and produce, and that's what I'm looking for that's what we have to have from that unit. We got to have it as an overall team for sure, but they're going to be a big factor in that, and so enough has been written about them. No more writing about the D-line. Now it's time for them to produce, and that's why they're here. So,
are you at a point now where you begin work on Pittsburgh, or are you still fine-tuning yourselves at this point?
Yeah, both, Chris. That's what I was referring to a little bit of trying to find my way this week, and how much we work on, how much I work on Pittsburgh, and how much is, again, focusing on getting our roster right, getting the practice squad right, getting things just from an administrative standpoint across to the team that we need to cross off our list this week. So it's been a little bit of both, and it'll continue to be that on until probably Monday at this point.
Knowing that you've got a lot of things to improve upon, and it's early into the season, hasn't even begun. What perspective did you draw from the 3 preseason games in training camp, or the 3 preseason games especially, in how the team competed? Be it how Mitch, how you ran the ball against Detroit, how Mitch produced in the first half against Chicago, and how just everything seemed to work offensively against Green Bay last weekend.
It's never as good as you want it to be, and it's never as bad as you think it is. So that's the saying in coaching. I think perspective is important. We know the toughest tests are ahead, and that's a healthy mindset this time of year, and that starts with Pittsburgh. So not to get ahead of ourselves, we got to practice in front of us here. So I think we have to. Winning looks, winning comes in different forms, and winning looks different to some people than others. One of my favorite drives moments from the game the other day, the Green Bay game, was when we didn't have the success that we wanted to have, because there's growth in there if we handle it the right way, and so. Certainly great to move the ball like we did that first series, but I think it was the second series we were backed up on the 1-yard line. We were able to get it out, but then the drive stalled, and so I think there's a lot of opportunity for growth there.
Sean, we've seen Greg Rousseau take a step forward in getting some reps with the first team defense during the preseason games. Where would you categorize where Boogie Basham is right now at this point in his career?
Yeah, I think he's competing. I think, again, his best football's ahead of him. He's working in 2 or 3 different positions. He's also contributing on special teams. So, it's really interesting to look at it from that perspective because, Joe, Greg is a little bit more in one position, if you will, where Boogie's having to balance 2 or 3 or 4 positions, which early on is going to force him to process and think a little bit more. And once he gets through that, he'll play faster, and so I think he's getting better every day.
Sean, now that the training camp's over and the preseason's over, positions that you had heavy competition at, let's just say at that number 2 corner spot between Dane and Levi, are you still evaluating that competition, or do you at this point have a pretty good idea of who is going to start there?
Well, no, I mean, listen, I have a pretty good feel in my mind, but at the same time, we always compete every day. These guys know same for my job. There's a million people outside that gate waiting to take my job, and I know they feel the same. So that's a healthy mentality that you continue to grow every day and stay competitive and know that these spots are earned daily. I mean, that's the business of the NFL, as they say.
How kind of growth have you seen from Matt Oliver this training camp?
I think in a lot of ways, Jay, it's been both on and off the field. You just see a young man that's I'm watching him now. He's out here early going through his pre-practice routine. I can tell you that wasn't always the case. He's connecting himself to the situations that come up through the course of the game, which is a challenge for young players coming from college to the NFL. So I think he's improving in a lot of different areas.
Expectations for him are always going to be a thing based on where he was drafted, whether that's amongst us or the fans. How do you discuss that with him? Maybe not try to put too much on him, or how do you approach that?
No, listen, these guys are so aware of media expectations and things anymore due to these phones that are around me here, and I don't think that needs to be brought to someone's attention. If it does, that's a question for Brandon why we drafted the guy. But no, these guys know. They know that's out there. But I think the biggest thing is when you play that position, there's a lot of unselfish traits that go with that position, and you're not always on the stat sheet. You're not always noticed on television or on the news or on Sports Center, but it's what happens, kind of between the hedges, if you will, that really factors into a game.
John, Cody Ford looked like he was with the first team most of the day yesterday. What that means, who knows? But do you feel like you've got a handle on the starting five on the offensive line, and where are you in terms of how that fivesome came through? Because it was a revolving door last year.
Yeah, no, it's that, continuity is important in all areas. But again, I think it speaks to the trust that we have and the depth that we have, that there's still competition at that position along the front. I thought Dion, if you go player by player across the front, Dion had a setback early and came back, and he's coming back and he's playing better and better every day. And then you go to left guard with John, and John had a few days where he missed in there too, and I think he's playing better every day. And then go right on down the line, right? But we all have our own challenges and things that these guys are working on, so the competition continues there as well, and those guys know that. So we try and do our best to communicate to everyone what the situation is.
Sean, you mentioned making the most of your opportunity. Devin Singletary, not a ton of touches this preseason, but made the most of them. Looked explosive. What were your takeaways from not only his preseason, but his spring and his summer?
Yeah, I see the same thing. He looks, I don't know if you want to say in better shape, but he looks like he really worked this offseason. Not that he didn't work last offseason. I know he did. He's just cut that way, and he's got burst to him this year. And when he's touched the ball, he's made things happen. And then his pass protection has been on point as well. So he's caught the ball well out of the backfield. So he looks like he's in a good spot and ready to go.
Sean, how much more, I'm not going to say easier, more efficient does it make everyone's job to have the kind of roster that Brandon and Joe have built, that you release all these guys and then you get them right back on the practice squad because they're your guys? You're not getting guys from other organizations. You didn't even put any waiver claims in, from what Brandon said. How much better does that make everyone's job?
What's he doing, man? That guy. What's he doing? I know he was here. He said he was here late the other night doing that stuff. No.
Think about back to your first couple of years in the roster turnover versus basically what you have now in that situation.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I can tell you from a head coach, you're always like, hey, man, what about this? What about this? What about this? And I'm sure he gets tired of me knocking on his door. But I think it shows confidence in the guys that we have and trust in the players that we have, and that's what you want. But I also know I have confidence and trust in Brandon and his staff that I know we joke about it, but I know when they're here what they're doing, and they're always on the hunt for improving our football team, and I think that doesn't always happen everywhere, that relationship between the head coach and the GM and his staff and my staff. So there's mutual respect and mutual trust, which I think helps us all do our jobs at a higher level.
Knowing that you're not starting against a division opponent, but you're starting against a familiar opponent in Pittsburgh that you've played the past two seasons, is there, I don't want to say comfort, but at least you know who that team is to a certain extent?
Well, I think if you're in the league long enough, you have a pretty good feel for who people are, and I feel like 20-some years now for myself. It's amazing how fast it goes. But, yeah, I think there's people probably feel the same way about me and about us, that they feel like they know who we are. So that's what makes it special. That's what makes the competition level so high, and we look forward to that. They're a good football team, and we expect a very tough game.
You text back and forth, Mike, yet?
No, we probably stay in touch a couple times a year. I know he's going to have his football team ready to go. He's in the preseason game where Ben played. I think it was Detroit. I mean, they looked really good.
We know Gabe Davis actually just entering his second season, but what do you think he brings to this offense?
Yeah, I mean, Gabe's such a special person. He's unique, very mature for a young man. Even last year when he first got here, you saw the production on the field, obviously. He's really he does a lot of things for this offense. He does a lot of things for this football team. He's one of the first guys in the weight room this morning. I mean, for a young player to have that DNA and those character traits, just says a lot about how he was raised by his mom and the family he was brought up by.
Sean, where do things stand from an injuries perspective with Isaiah McKenzie, Taron Johnson, and Harrison Phillips in relation to week 1?
Yeah, it's still a projection at this point, Joe. So we'll see all 3 of those guys out here today in some capacity. You know, so we'll just take it one day at a time at this point. I don't know yet for sure. Yeah. You guys good? All right. Thank you, guys.